Here we are, here you are. Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's another fine Thursday evening, and
It's
of course, we're doing a live stream because that's what we do on fine Thursday evenings. So glad you're hanging out with us tonight. And Sky is sick as a dog, but happy to be here. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but happy you're here anyway. So
sorry.
bust out the
Better
Kleenex
soon.
and and just lay there wrapped up in a blanket and watch the live stream. How about that? Emma's here too. I see Noelle.
Howdy,
sorry,
howdy.
Miss Knight. I have a work meetings.
Work meeting.
You know what you do with that? You only half pay attention.
Noelle,
That's
have
what I
fun.
think.
Tell everyone we said hello.
Yeah, tell everybody at the work meeting. We're like, hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So tonight we have got some things to talk about. We are going to be doing a giveaway, and we're going to be talking about the 55 gallon, the 75 gallon. It's been a while since we've talked about that. Two of the most popular tank sizes on the face of the earth, and so that should be cool, I hope. And so looking forward to doing that. Yeah, and we've got some things going on, and of course we will, as always, have a chance to answer your questions because that's what we like to do. Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Awesome.
I would, and I do.
So, as always, there are some things we want to talk about before we get into our subject videos that have happened this week. On Sunday, I did a video on Java. Well, not really Java moss in particular. Java moss was one of the things. It was more aquarium moss, and I used Java moss and Christmas moss as the two main examples because they're the two main types.
Yeah,
So
they're fun.
Did that video. If you haven't checked it out, if you've never kept Java moss or any kind of aquarium moss, now might be the time. On Sunday, on your Container Joy channel, what did you do?
Went shopping. Oh, I went to Hobby Lobby.
Yep.
Boy, did I have fun.
Yeah, you talked about some stuff and things there on Container Joy. And then
Stuff and
on
things.
Monday, on the Tank Talk podcast, John and I were finally able to do part 2 of keeping African cichlids, and we focused on the peacocks and haps, and that was a lot of fun. So many people asked for it because I don't know what we were thinking. The original plan was to do an entire episode on African cichlids, just how to keep African cichlids, all of them. And in the first episode that we did about a month ago, we barely got through Mbuna. And we're like, wow, it's already been an hour. We just talked about Mbuna. So like, we're going to have to break this up into 2 parts. So then I was thinking, okay, here's what we're going to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about peacocks and haps, and I think we can fit the Lake Tanganyikans in as well. Hour and 15 minutes later, we're like, we just barely got through the peacocks and haps. And so I'm thinking maybe possibly that we're going to have to do a part 3 to that at some point and talk about the Lake Tanganyikan cichlids because we never got a chance to do that. So anyway, that's what's going on in the land of the Tank Talk podcast. Yesterday, I get all the channels confused at this point.
TSS,
on the Smallscape. What did we talk about there?
We talked about a couple of plants. It was a plant battle.
A plant battle.
Yes,
That
two of the
sounds
most
dangerous.
popular plants put up against each other. They're, you would think that you would know like all the differences because they look very different. But there's just some things to keep in mind if you are considering either. So there you go. That's what I did.
And the plants were what?
Anubias versus Java fern.
Anubias versus Java fern.
Most will have a very distinct opinion of like, oh, I really like this one. I don't like that one. That's my hypothesis. And so far, it seems to be proving correct.
Okay, so there you have it.
There you go.
Anubias versus Java fern. That was on the Smallscape yesterday, Prime Timers. We talked a little bit about today about some changes in the fish room. And then on Sunday, I'm going to have, I hope to be a pretty fun how-to video. That's been a while since I've done one of those.
Really?
Yeah, so that's what's coming on in the Prime Time Aquatics. And so yes, if you're confused, if you've never been here before, I just mentioned videos on 4 different channels. Primetime Aquatics, what you're currently watching, your 2 channels, Container Joy and the Smallscape, and then the podcast I do with John from KG Tropicals, the Tank Talk podcast. And so there you have it. There's
It's
life.
like 4 little buckets.
4 buckets of information.
That's how my brain
There you
works,
have it.
buckets.
Where we're going to be So on Sunday, very, very busy day for us because Joanna and Eli are headed to Northbrook, Illinois for the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association swap. I am headed with my sister-in-law to Davenport, Iowa, where we are going to be at the Quad City swap. Website has already been updated. It's been up and running since last weekend. So if you are going to one of those swaps, want to see what we have available, check out primetimeaquatics.com. You can do your pre-orders there. Lots of you placed orders already. Thank you very, very much for doing that. We've got them all. I've got them all listed over here on a big stack of papers. And yeah, we're going to be extraordinarily busy on Sunday. I had to break Luke out of retirement, so it's always a busy time when I got to bring in the big guns, if you will. So yeah, that's on Sunday. We're going to be doing that.
Katie says, hello, everyone. I just came from KG Tropicals.
Well, hello. Glad you're here hanging out with us. And I just saw, if my chat thing would not freeze up the way it does, the Zen. The Zen is celebrating almost 3 years, 35 months. Is that what that says? Wow. I'm actually wearing my Just Scape It shirt from the Small Scape tonight.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
You are all prepared.
Thank you
ready.
so much. That's really
awesome.
Cool. Yep. That was one of the many shirts. You got into a creative streak there, and this was another one right here. This.
Yes.
What is this?
Well, I first designed Shrimp Wrangler, and then you really wanted a Fish Wrangler. I'm like, yeah, I can't really find a fish that I really want. You're like, no, I want a Fish Wrangler too. So I was like, all right,
yeah,
you're gonna have Fish Wrangler.
It's true. That is absolutely true. So where else we're gonna be? So yeah, we got the GCCA, we got the quad on Sunday, 15th of March. Thankfully, we only have one swap in March, and that is the Greenwater Aquarium Society swap. That'll be in Tinley Park. And we've got a whole mess load of new fish going through quarantine right now that will be ready, provided that they get through quarantine all wonderfully, and so far so good for that swap. And then the thing I am really excited about, I've mentioned this a few times already, we're going to be at the Minnesota Aquarium Society Expo, just outside, or I guess it's in Minneapolis, pretty much right there. So if you are in that area, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a one-day thing. It's a Saturday, the 22nd. It's from like 9 to 6. There's going to be a huge, massive swap. There's going to be speakers. I will be one of them. And it should be awesome. And demos and competitions and all kinds of stuff.
Brett Baker says, wait, TSS has merch? Take my money. It's funny. You can check the website. It's all on Primetime Aquatics. Yeah. And you'll see the ones like, I think I still have a few of the Stuck On You shirts. They're listed, and if you look, there's going to be little, like this one's Primetime, and then my Shrimp Wrangler, there's a little tiny, the Small Scape. But I will soon be coming out with like my logo merch.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody who showed up to the live stream, the Small Scape live stream on Saturday. That was fun.
So much fun.
That
Saturday
was a
morning.
thing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun.
So, and for those of you who just got here, yes, we're going to be doing a giveaway a little bit later. Our subject for tonight is 55-gallon versus 75-gallon, and we're going to have plenty of time to answer your questions as well, because I don't think this is going to take a super long time, but I just wanted to hit some of the highlights in case you're somebody who's maybe never had one of these aquariums before, you're trying to figure out which one you want to look at. I did an extensive video on the subject. I think I linked that in the description. I'm pretty sure I did. I think, kind of. Maybe I'll check after the live stream and see if I did or not, but I'm pretty sure. So how about if we start with the 55-gallon?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
What do y'all think? We'll start with the 55-gallon because it's the smaller one, and I don't know. We'll just work our way up. So 55-gallon. I think what we need to first understand is the size difference between the two, and it's actually not that, at least on paper, it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal because they're both the same. So we go length times width times height. So whenever you see measurements, if someone is doing it the right way, length, width, height. So the length of the tank is, for both of them, a 55-gallon and a 75-gallon, is 48 inches. So it's a 4-foot tank. And for those of you who have never had a 4-foot tank, I remember the first time I got a 4-foot tank, and it was believe it or not, it was a 60-gallon. So it's basically the same as a 55, but it was like an inch or so taller. But I remember getting that first 4-foot tank, and when you're used to having 29 gallons and 20 gallons your whole life, and all of a sudden you've got this big 4-foot tank, it looks massive, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So both the 55s and the 75s are 4 feet long. believe it or not, the height is relatively the same. They're around 21 inches tall. The difference, of course, comes in the width, and that is your 55 gallon is only 12 and a half inches wide. The 75 gallon is 18 inches wide, and so 18 and a half actually. And so that's the main difference, the fact that in that 75 gallon, it's a deeper, wider tank, and that can mean a whole lot, as we're going to see when you're looking at both of these tanks.
Do you want to hear some smack talk?
Sure.
It's funny. I just have to share. All right. Whip. I think he's a new viewer. I'm not familiar with the name.
Sure.
Whip. 55 gallons are great if you're 11. After that, not so much.
Wow.
And then Dennis says, big fan of the 55 until I got a 75. That's your smack talk so far. I'll keep you posted.
All right. Anybody want to smack talk to 75? I think
Right?
this is just going in the
Right?
one direction here. We got to have some 75 smack talkers out there at some point. So, okay, we got the size differences, right? So now we've got the basics down. Now with the 55 gallon, if you were going to choose a 55 gallon, what would be the reason why you would choose one? Do you have just to try to put yourself in the position of, I'm going to the store, I'm getting a 55 gallon.
Oh, less money to fill it.
Okay.
That would be the reason.
Absolutely.
Only reason.
So it's not just less money to fill it though, right? Because you're right, little bit less substrate because you don't have the 18 and a half inches, you only have 12 and a half, so it's a narrower tank, which also means most likely your hardscaping and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have not quite as much.
Specifically, yeah.
Right? The filtration, you might go with a slightly smaller filter. Now, here's what I would recommend on both of these tanks. If you're doing, I don't care if you're doing sponge filters, hang on back filters. This is a 4-foot aquarium. I always run 2 filters. If it's a canister filter, no, then I just run one because I've got an intake on one side and a return on the other. I'm good. But if I'm running hang on backs, if I'm going to be running a internal canister filter, if I'm going to be running sponge filters, I would run one on each side of the aquarium. I would also, for both of these aquariums, run 2 heaters, and they would be near the returns on most likely hang on back filters. When I do that, ideally, if you're going to run 2 heaters in the same aquarium, I would run that to an external thermostat, and that thermostat is reading water temperature, and it's kicking those heaters on and off at the same time so that you don't have one heater that's always running and the other one that's never running, because even though they're set at the same temperature, it's slightly different calibration. Okay, so we got that. The other thing that I think is a huge money saver on the 55 is the fact that they come in kits.
Okay.
Most of the time you can run right to a Petco, right to a PetSmart, and boom, there you go. You've got the 55 gallon kit that comes with the lid, the light, the filter, the heater, a net, a package of water conditioner, and a little package of fish food. So you're getting pretty much a thermometer, most of the things you need for the 55. I would love to hear from you in the chat. Has anybody ever seen a 75 gallon kit? I'm not necessarily talking about something that a local fish store kind of put together and slapped together and said, here's a 75 gallon kit. I'm talking about a 75 gallon that comes from the manufacturer, like a Top Fin or an Aquarium or a Magitarium kit. Have you ever seen one? Because I cannot recall ever seeing a 75 gallon kit. And so what that means is at least your out the door price is most likely going to be higher. Everything else aside, the 75 gallon in and of itself is going to cost more. But all the equipment that you need for the 75 gallon is also going to be more money, because usually with the 75, you get the tank and possibly the lids. That's about it.
Yeah.
And then everything else that you're going to have to buy.
Extra.
And that's going to cost a lot more money. That being said, I just said, hey, I use 2 heaters, 2 filters. And that tank is only coming with 1 heater and 1 filter. So there is going to be some cost there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for a lot of you, I'm sure you do a lot of, finding deals and all that kind of stuff. And many of you know where to look to find stuff not as expensive, but it's always shocking when somebody buys an aquarium when they realize how much more money they have to spend on all the other stuff. The substrate, the rocks, the wood, the plastic caves, the plastic plants, real plants, whatever you prefer, all that other stuff, a background, whatever you want to do, a stand, All of that costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 55 gallon, definitely cheaper. Okay, so that would be, I would say, the main advantage. Disadvantage. Do you have one? So, because you, I think, have already implied in previous
I haven't
streams
implied. I've been very clear.
that you have a preference for the 75 gallon. So what do
Yes.
you find problematic for the 55?
I don't like to scape the 55. It's like my least favorite tank to scape because there's just no depth. There's just, you have this really sweet piece of driftwood, these rocks, and you're out of room. Well, it doesn't fit. So I don't, for its size, I mean, if you're going to make me pick a larger than 20 gallon tank, it's not going to be a 55.
Now, this is off subject. Would you rather have a 40 breeder or a 55 for scaping?
Can I have a nano tank instead?
No, you have to pick one of the two for scaping.
For scaping, what do I get?
A 40 breeder or a 55?
40 breeder.
Okay. So, yeah, and you're right. Obviously, those 55s are difficult to scape just because they are a little bit narrow. I'll show you a picture of one. Here we go, right here. And here's a 55 gallon. This was a real quick Mbuna setup. This was gravel, not the way that you normally keep these fish. So just want to say right from the start, sand, right? This ideally would be black sand. That would be a much better option than what I've got here. But this is a 55 gallon that I think did you scape this one back in the day?
I wouldn't even call it escape because
well, you slapped some stuff together, right? So you put some
because
rocks
all the
in,
stuff
a few
that I
pieces of
wanted
wood.
wouldn't fit. I
Right.
think this is where my feelings for the 55
Yeah.
began.
I just have so many feelings. I just wish we could all get along like we used to. Yeah. And
Yeah.
bake a cake out of rainbows. She doesn't even go here. So anyway, yeah, the 55 does present some challenges. Now, the nice thing is this is a tank that you're still going to get a lot of stocking options. Again, we got Mbuna in here. No problem. They live in this tank for a really long time. The White Knight Alis aren't Mbuna, but the Solosi that you see, the blue ones, the rusty cichlids are in there. They all got along great. So you've got a tank that's going to be, it's a nice sized tank. You've got height there with that 21 inches. So now you've got, hey, I can put some fish at the bottom, some mid swimmers, some upper swimmers. I've got a lot of space there. So there are, again, this is a nice sized tank, especially if you've never had a 4-foot aquarium before. The other advantage, I think, to this aquarium in particular, weight. The weight, right? So typically what we say is, hey, right around 10 pounds per gallon. And that is generally, I don't know why this went to a 75. Let me see if we can go back. There we go. Right around 10 pounds per gallon. So you're at right around 550 pounds or so.
Yep.
So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing, and I know this made you a little bit nervous, not about nervous, but it was a concern. We had only 255 gallons. When this gallery was a fish room, we had 255 gallons in the corner there. That is a very narrow tank on a stand. And we had them on a double stand. And so I was like, it was definitely something where of all the stands that we had in the fish room, that was the one where I'm like, if something ever happens, it's going to be that double 55 in the corner there. But you need to keep that in mind. Obviously, a lot of people aren't going to double stack 55 gallon aquariums. However, if you've got an aquarium, let's say on carpet, and you've got a 55 gallon on a stand, be careful. You might want to consider, hey, I should maybe use some brackets, a U-bracket to kind of attach the 55 gallon stand to the actual studs within the wall.
Sure.
Especially if you've got young kids or crazy dogs that they get the
Barrel
zoomies and
into
you've got a
things,
150 pound dog that's going to bump into that tank. It's a lot of weight, but it's also, again, it's going to be pretty top heavy. So just keep that in mind with the 55. So I don't know if there's anything else with the 55 that I think we've left out.
No, but Zenny brought up a good point.
What's that?
With a 55, a good place for that would be like a narrow hallway. Like when you're looking, when you don't have a lot of depth, you know?
That's a really good point.
That'd
So
be
if you
a
have
winner.
that's a great point. Or maybe the way your living room is set up where you've got let's say a couch or a sofa that's kind of breaking up the living room and you've got a hallway behind that or just a walkway and you want to put a tank back there. In fact, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but when we bought our place, when we walked in, wasn't there a 55 gallon right
I don't know what
by
size
the door?
it was.
It was a 55.
But I remember there was
Yeah.
a tank there. Yeah.
So right in the entranceway, and I think a 75 would have come out a little bit too far. So,
Yeah.
Finsanity, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. It's been about a year. What's your final thoughts on the Biomaster 850, and is it that good enough for a 125 gallon Peacock tank alongside with the AC 110? With both of them, yes. Would I do a Biomaster 850 with a Peacock tank and only that filter? No, I would not. I don't think it's going to move quite enough water for a heavily stocked African cichlid tank like an Mbuna tank or a Peacock tank. But if they've been outstanding filters, and I've got it on my list within the next month or so, I'm going to be doing a long-term review because there are some excellent features to that filter. I very, very much like those filters. So I've got two Biomaster 850s in the back on the 125s and a smaller Biomaster back here on the low boy there. And there are some features that are outstanding on that filter. So they're expensive, but I do like them quite a bit. Absolutely. Leslie, thank you so much for gifting 5 new Prime Timers. The Prime Timer experience, really appreciate that. Thanks for doing that. That was very nice. And same thing with Dennis. Thank you so much for doing that, for gifting 5 new Prime Timers. I love our little community here and how giving they are. That is really, really cool. Thank you for doing that. Okay, 75 gallon. 75. This is a picture of actually the tank that is right behind me. That is our 75 gallon Mbuna tank. That is not a biotype, biotope, because I got that big driftwood, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
I know. So here, again, 4-foot tank. Again, it's the same length. It's basically the same height, right around 21 inches, but now we have the 18.5-inch depth. That tank with that rock background, I could have never done in a 55 gallon. I would have had absolutely no space to do that. That background sticks out at its widest points a solid 6 inches, if not more. So that 3D background, you're not doing that in a 55. So it's just not happening. Unless you do, like both Aqua Decor and Universal Rocks, they have a very, very thin, I don't even know, I would call it a textured background more than I would call it a 3D background. Like the ones that we have down there, that like earth tone one, and we had one in the Guppy tank as well for a while. So yeah, you're not doing a 3D background in a 55, but you can do that in a 75 gallon. You like it for what reason?
Just to have more options for scaping. I mean, I just think it's easier.
Yeah, so I scaped this particular tank, and you can see the wood and the rocks. I could never have fit that wood in a 55 gallon.
No.
It would have looked very, very two-dimensional. I mean, I could have put it in there, but I would have had a couple of problems. One, it would have been extremely close to the front of the glass, which is a pet peeve of mine because then you can't keep the front of the glass clean. Don't like that. And then the second thing is I would have had to have pushed all that wood almost straight up and down, and so there would have been no actual three-dimensional shape to that. So the background, like I said, that is all Aqua Decor. That is a fake background. Absolutely loved it. It came in like 5 different pieces, and you kind of puzzle piece it back together. And then the other rocks in there, I think were just various types of river rocks that I thought would match well with the background. So
it's probably from of ours stash from the landscaping place, right?
Yep. In that particular tank, I have a wow.
Yeah. Take 2.
I have a Fluval 407 canister filter, which I absolutely love that filter as well. I have them in both 75 gallons, which would also work wonderful for a 55. But if I didn't have a canister filter in there, like I've already said, there would be double hang-on back filters or at least 2 sponge filters in that tank. So now the big advantage here, besides the scaping, you do have more stocking options. Where I did the Mbuna in the 55 gallon, I showed you that is, you're really limited in terms of the number of species that you can put in a 55 Mbuna tank. Where in a 75 gallon, you can add at least another half, I would say 6 to 8 more Mbuna cichlids. So if you're into cichlids, you're going to be better off. That extra ground space allows for a lot more territory for even your dwarf South and Central American cichlids are going to have a little bit more space. More stocking options because you've got that extra 20 gallons. Your schooling fish, you can keep more. Or maybe if instead of doing, hey, I'm going to do 25 of this particular schooling fish in a 75 gallon, I'm going to do 2 groups of 20. You do have more options there. The other thing to consider, though, with the 75-gallon that I think is overlooked sometimes is the weight. Right now, both of these tanks, they weigh a lot, right? The 55-gallon we talked about being 550, but the 75-gallon is 750 pounds. That's no joke, right? That is definitely getting up there. So now, if you're looking at your comfort level, let's say with putting a tank on a second floor or a floor that is questionably supported. Well, I don't know if I'd put a 55 on there either, but you get my point, and that is you have to be a little bit more careful. I think in both cases, you're looking at an aquarium that needs a stand, that pretty much needs a dedicated stand. I think the dresser that you have up in your area for the small scape would hold a 55 because it's an old school, very, very, very heavy dresser.
Yeah.
I think the dresser that we had in the old live stream studio,
that's a beast,
would have also held a 55, but outside of those two, I can't think of another piece of furniture where I would have trusted a 550-pound tank on top of it. And even those are questionable. So you really have to be careful there because you never know with both of these. But you're getting more scaping options. You're getting more stocking options with the 75. But boy, oh boy, the cost is going to shoot up considerably too for 20 gallons. And again, I think you should consider that if you're someone's like, man, you know what? I've got enough maybe for I can do the 55 easily. But then do you have enough to do all the scaping that you want, to do all the stocking that you want in that tank? Because of the 75-gallon, those of you know, even if you can find them at the 50% off sale, they're still a decent amount more. The stands are more. Lids are a lot more. For the most part, I still think the lighting is pretty much going to be the same light because of the same height tank. I know the 75 is wider, but I don't think the lighting really has to change much. Filtration, to me, you're going to go up a little bit in the 75-gallon, especially if you're running. So as an example, on the 55, if you're a Seachem Tidal person, then yeah, you could do 2 Seachem Tidal 55s on a 55-gallon. If you are doing a 75, then you're going to need the Seachem Tidal 75. So guess what? That went up. If you're looking for heaters, usually we say, well, try to get around 2 to 3 watts per gallon. Well, that's going to add up as well. More substrate because you've got that extra 6 inches of width, so that's going to take some more getting used to. Definitely more rocks, more wood, more plants to fill that all up. More time when you do your water changes, right? So it's not substantially more. If you're doing a 25% water change, well, maybe instead of doing, I don't know, 10, 12 gallons of water, now you're doing like 15. So it's not the end of the world, but they're all things to consider. Working on the tanks, maintaining them, I think it's about the same. Because they're both tall. They're both the same height. So maintenance is going to be about the same.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, but what's the substrate you have? What kind of sand is in there?
That is probably some kind of a generic, like a
that's just the
Magitarium
black
top fin. There was nothing special about that.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's their current Pet Smart's current black sand.
I think you're the one that actually bought it because I think you were like, hey, I'm going to wherever. I'm like, hey, can you just pick up a bunch of black sand?
Yes, and it's not that it used to be top fin black sand. It's no longer. So I think it actually is called black diamond, but it's not the same as black diamond. No, wait, no.
Sand. No, it's
not. It's not called black diamond. That's actually the other substrate. I don't know what it's called, but it's Pet Smart's black sand.
Yeah, it's a good sand. I don't mind it. I mean, people ask all the time if we've got some kind of a specialty sand that we use. We don't.
It's not the best for starting plants. I'm just saying there is a period of time where I do feel, and there are some other people who also feel the same, that your plants will not do well for a while. So I don't know if it's rinsing that might help it, or if there's just I don't know.
It's so funny. I'm looking at the fish in this video. This is when I first set it up. I put these fish in there, and now I'm looking at them like, holy cow!
They're like babies there.
Huge, and all the Solosi males now are colored up, and I had to put in this tank. It's the weirdest combo, but it works fantastically. At some point, I'll have to do another gallery tour, but in that Mbuna tank,
pretty in there.
There are like 18 Buenos Aires tetras, and people ask all the time, man, these Buenos Aires tetras, they're fin nippers, they're real bruisers, they're not good for community tanks. I don't think at all. They're really good for African cichlid tanks because all these fish were hiding, And then what I did is I threw those Buenos Aires in there, and now I look, and there they all are, just out staring at me like, hey, man, is it going to be time to eat soon? Because the Buenos Aires are out all the time, and it's a really, really good combination. So if you are looking for non-cichlid schooling fish to go with, I don't know if they would work as well with peacock cichlids, because peacock cichlids tend to command more of the total tank. I actually still think they would do okay, but with the Mbuna, oh, it has worked out very well. And certainly it would work out well with medium-sized South and Central American cichlids. So, yeah, that's been really, really cool. So that, I think, is a pretty good overview of the 55 versus 75 gallon. Okay. Boston says, hi, do you think I could keep spotted Congo puffers in a 75? I want to keep them with African banded barbs. Also, how many can be kept peacefully? I have not kept Congo puffers, so I am not a good person to ask.
How big do they
but
get?
If anybody has more information, feel free to pipe in. Rebecca says a 120 is awesome. 4x2x2. Yeah, that's a nice tank. I had a 150 gallon that was 4 feet by 2 feet by 30 inches, and Whip has that tank now. That was hard for me to work on because Whip is considerably taller than me. He's basically like if I stood on my own head.
Considerably taller than most humans.
Yeah. So he doesn't have a problem with it, I'm sure. But it's tough because for all of us, if we wanted to move rocks at the bottom, or had to catch a fish out of the bottom of that tank, we were standing on a step stool leaning into that
diving
aquarium.
in there. Yeah.
So it was really tough. But the 120s are pretty cool. That 150 is great. It would make a great angelfish, sevrum, discus tank.
Oh, yeah.
But the 4-foot 120s is definitely better. You know what tank I haven't seen in a long time? The 5-foot 120 or the 5-foot 110. It's almost like those aquariums have vanished.
Really?
Kind of like the 33 long, which, by the way, is an outstanding, or the 40 long is an outstanding alternative to the 55, because 33 long is the same length, same width, but it's only 12 inches tall. 40 long is same length, same width as a 55, but it's like, what is it, probably 14 inches tall? So way easier to work on those tanks than the 55, but I have not seen those 5-foot tanks in forever. And I think it's because they were kind of a standalone. I mean, you could get, at one point, they had 5-foot, 100-gallon, 110s, and 120s. And I remember when we were setting up, when we still had like a TV back here and we had a couch back here and the big screen TV with the surround sound, I was actually looking at potentially getting a couple of the 5-foot tanks, and they're gone, man. I haven't seen those things in forever. Minimax says, I have both of those. That's cool, because you have a tank that's not nearly as common as it used to be. Yeah, Dory, they 5-foot tanks back in the 90s and early 00s were definitely a thing. In fact, if you would go into PetSmart, remember they used to have the setups, and it was very common to see the 4-foot 150, the 6-foot 125, and they would always have at least some type of a 5-foot tank there, whether it was the 110 or the 120. Yeah. It was kind of interesting. I like that 5-foot 120. It was definitely a taller tank though. But I think for those of you who like the 4-foot 90-gallon, that is a very tall tank. You got to have some long arms or some long tools to work on that bad boy.
All right, Dan the Mountain Dew Man, love that, says, my tank is a weird size. It's a 60-gallon, 48 by 12 by 24.
Yeah, that's actually not, believe it or not, that was a very common tank back in certainly the 90s and the 00s. So it's just a 55-gallon, slightly taller. It's a cool tank. That's the first 4-foot tank I had, was that 60-gallon. Cecil, thank you so much for being a prime timer the last month, celebrating 1 month. Really appreciate that. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Cool. Tim says, I just ordered 2 AquaClear 70s, the new models for my 55. It's going to be a non-planted community tank. Is that adequate? 100%. Those AquaClears, they're going to move a lot of water. So for a 55-gallon, you are in very good shape.
William Hartman wants to know, do the Siamese algae eaters eat algae off of glass? I don't know, do they?
I do see them because they just kind of munch on the surface. And I do from time to time see them munching on the glass, but it's definitely not something that I see them doing a lot. They're much more likely to kind of munch on the surface of plants, rocks, and wood. You'll smaller ones especially, sometimes you'll see them, and even if they do, they're not doing a whole lot. The Siamese algae eaters to me are really great for the green hair algae, blackbeard algae, but for like the brown diatom algae and the green hard algae, they don't do as much. For that, I depend more on the bristlenose plecos, or if I've got smaller aquariums, snails. Mr. Skip says, whenever you hear a center brace broke in a fish tank, 9 times out of 10, it happened in a 55. I don't know why they make them so small. I had one get brittle and break. That is true. I saw a post on Facebook probably about a month ago, and somebody was like, hey, I have this 55 gallon and the center brace was broken, and they took a picture from the side of the tank, and of course it was bowing out. And they're like, is this going to be okay? Like, it should be fine,
no.
right? I'm like, I never respond to those things, but luckily a bunch of people are like, no, that is absolutely not okay. You're going to want to get the water out of there and not do that, because eventually those seams are going to break. Unless it's a rimless tank, most of the pressure that is occurring with these aquariums, when you have a rim tank, like all the ones that we have, those rims are critically important. So both the bottom and the top, and they're reinforced. That's a big part of what is keeping that tank together. If you were to remove those, like a lot of people, it became fashionable at one point, like, I'm going to turn my standard aquarium into a rimless aquarium. Well, think about that for a second, because usually that rim, those black rims, are part of what is holding that tank together and giving it its integrity. So those center braces break, there is a 0% chance I'm putting water in a tank. Just expect at some point, if it's 55 gallon, you'll start to see 55 gallons of water on the floor at some point. And if you've never had water on the floor, I promise you, take a gallon jug and just pour it on your floor. And when you realize how much water that is, and then multiply that by 55, holy cow. Remember we had that huge thing, that was the worst water thing we ever had happen in our fish room. Where we were, was I outside?
I came in the house first.
Yeah, I was outside on the phone. Joanna comes in the house, and you heard...
I heard water running. There were 2 different times we came home and I heard water running.
Yeah.
And nobody was home. That's not a good feeling. No. So, yeah, the water was running down here.
So what happened was, we have a hose that's hooked up with the sink, kind of like a Python system. And of course, that hose is not meant to hold water pressure that's coming from the tap. Luke was doing water changes, forgot to actually turn the water off at the faucet.
The way off, yeah.
Instead, he just turned the latch. That we have a thing that hangs onto the side of the aquarium, and you can just move the lever, and it will let the water flow. And then you turn it off temporarily, put it back to the sink or to a different tank. But then you got to shut the actual water off. Well, he forgot to do that. And that hose, eventually, because of the water pressure built up, it split, and the water was just going full blast for basically the entire time we were gone. And we came down, and it was an all hands on deck emergency. We had inches of water down here. Now, luckily, we have a couple sumps on both sides, and being in a basement, those floors are sloped. And so we also allowed engineering to do its course, and we could just kind of push the water towards the sumps. We had 2 big wet dry backs going. Of course, we had all the fans and all that stuff, but it was not a way that we wanted to spend an evening. So
no.
I highly recommend, if your tank is suspect, if it's sus, just pass on it. It's not worth it. I wouldn't take a tank with a broken rim for free, unless you knew how to repair it, and repair it really, really well.
Guppy 314. Question, what would you suggest for a 48 by 37 by 13? Harder water, not Shelly's.
Wait, 48 inches by 37 inches?
High by 13
wow.
wide.
So
yeah.
that is...
4 foot.
No, not 30. No, 48 by 37. Length times... Did you not listen to my little explanation?
I'm just reading what they're saying.
Times width times height.
Well, this one is...
It's a frag tank.
Length times height times width. I'm just reading what I'm reading.
There's no way you could have a 48. No, that's impossible. You'd have a 37-inch tall tank with only 12 inch. It would be like a.
It's almost like it's like my old school portrait tank, but
Yeah, only
way-
like 3 feet high. I don't think that's what that meant. If it is, if I'm mistaken, it is. They do sell those. They do sell those really, really tall column tanks.
So
I doubt that's what it is.
okay.
I think it's a frag tank.
Okay.
And I think that's why
Let's
she's
just-
recommending shell dwellers with hard water. So
okay.
I'm going to assume that, first of all, that's a great size tank. 4 by over 3 by 13 inches tall. No shell dwellers, hard water. You could do rock dwellers. I mean, you could do any of the Julidochromis. With that size tank, you could easily do Cyprichromis. So if you want to go with the Lake Tanganyikans, but the rock dwellers or the open water swimmers, that would be pretty awesome. I mean, those would be very, very entertaining. Put those in with some dwarf Synodontis. That would be super cool. You can go the live bear route. Guppies, Endlers, Platies, Swordtails. Those would all be fine.
I would do.
Yeah.
What about gobies?
Another good
That would be
possibility.
fun.
Some of the Rhinogobius or the Stiphodon, yeah, those would also work. Yep, all very good options. That's a nice tank. You've got some options there. Okay, let me scroll on down here because you know how this thing goes. It gets all messed it up. Then I have to fix it. Dory, thank you so much for becoming a prime time. I really appreciate it.
Aw.
Glad you're hanging with us.
Let's see. Oh, I saw my note. I saw my name here somewhere. Oh, from Sylvie. What were those tiny glue tubes that I used to stick Anubias to wood and rocks? Tiny glue tubes.
Well, just what did you use? What do
Well,
you
I
use?
would. I used a super glue gel. I'm trying to think if I used. Oh, you know what? If you're talking about when I finished at my 22, I actually used the little. I think I did use the individual portion sizes from the Dollar Tree. They have like 3 per package, and that can be better if you know that you have to glue a decent amount, and you don't want to worry about the thing getting clogged up and then you can't open it next time. Just get the little individual ones. Just be really careful when you're trying to open the cap. Hold it by the bottom where the seam is. Don't hold it by the package, because when you twist off the cap, just come squirting out and it's going to be a mess.
Now, that's fine, but can you talk about the actual best way with the whole spray stuff that everybody
accelerator?
uses? Yeah. So what, I mean, if you're going to pick a way to do it, what way is that?
Well, it's still a super glue gel. Oh my gosh.
Does it matter what type?
I can't remember. Is it Bob Smith Industries?
I think so,
I think it's
yeah.
Bob Smith Industries from Amazon. And then there's an accelerator spray too. So you get the, you always want to use.
Are you going to sneeze?
No.
Don't sneeze.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I'm good. You want to use as little as possible for the super glue. But as soon as you attach, you spray the accelerator, and it accelerates.
It's pretty cool. It's a cool trick.
amazing. Yeah, amazing.
Tom, thank you so much for becoming a prime timer. Appreciate it. Hope you love it. Anthony, great question. Would you recommend 8 male peacocks for a 55-gallon? I wouldn't do that. So, and definitely, if you get a chance, check out the Tank Talk podcast. That's the podcast that John from KG Tropicals and I do. And we just talked about peacocks and haps in the last episode, the one that came out on Monday. I personally, if I'm going to do a peacock tank, I wouldn't do one again unless I had a 6-foot tank, a 125. And the reason for that is I actually find male peacocks to be more aggressive towards one another than almost all other cichlid types, with the exception of the really aggressive Mbuna. But Mbuna, I would much rather have in a 55-gallon or a 75. I've done peacock tanks in a 75, and even that was, once you have males that are trying to dominate, it becomes a big problem. And especially with just 8, you're most likely going to have some territory issues, where what we're trying to do is we're trying to overstock our African cichlid tanks, Malawi tanks, so the Mbuna and the peacocks. And to do that based on their size, I really do want that 6-foot tank for the peacocks, because it gives them a little bit more space, and it gives you the ability to overstock them properly. I even tried it in a 4-foot 150, and that actually worked out okay, just because there was, again, it was 4 feet by 2 feet wide by 30 inches tall with a lot of structure, and it worked out all right, but not as good as it would have if it was a 6-foot tank.
Thank you, Betta Aquatics. She said, bless you, just in case I was going to sneeze. Very sweet. From Leslie Perry, I saw a guy that said to use cigarette filters to glue stuff in aquariums. They are cheap, but did not work for me. Yes, I've seen that as well. If you are going to use cigarette filters, the thing is, you're going to be needing a lot of super glue, because what happens is, and I recommend, so if you are gluing, say, like 2 rocks together, you can't just stick in a bunch of super glue. You're going to be waiting like forever because there's gaps. So unless they're, like stuck right together, like flat, you're going to have all these gaps and it's just not going to work. So that's why you need like a little mass to stick in between. I would use, and I prefer to use, pieces of a cotton ball. Mm-hmm. Because you can just rip off a little piece, and once you attach the, put it in between, you shove the little cotton ball piece, and then you have to get it completely like logged, like super glue logged, and then like waterlogged, super glue logged, you know what I mean? And then that mass of cotton ball will like harden into super glue attachment. It's amazing. So yeah, just use smaller bits. A cigarette filter wouldn't work for me. I'd have to rip. It's too big. I don't use that much. Yep. So there you go.
Says, I have aggressive red-eye tetras. Any tips? Lots of them in a big tank. So if I were keeping red-eye tetras, believe it or not, I'd want at least a 4-foot tank. So at least a 55-gallon or a 75-gallon like we've been talking about. And I would do exactly what I did with the Buenos Aires. Red-eye tetras and the Buenos Aires. I would say the Buenos Aires are actually even a little bit more aggressive at times. But to prevent issues, and they've been a model citizen in this 75-gallon, because I think that, like I said, I believe there's 15 or 18 of them in that aquarium, and they've got plenty of space, but you got to keep a lot of them and know that they are fin nippers, and they can be aggressive and they can be assertive. And so I would never put the red-eye tetra or the Buenos Aires in an aquarium with anything that's long fin, anything that's going to be mellow. So no guppies, no platies. Cory cats should be fine because they don't typically go to the bottom and mess with fish down there. But yeah, I like those types of fish for a semi-aggressive setup where maybe I had some Severums, or I had some electric blue Acara, or maybe there's a rainbow shark in there, or some full-size gourami. Those would all be options. We need to do our giveaway. How about that?
Kay.
Should we do that? What do you think, everybody? Okay, so let me get all prepped here, because
afterwards I want to answer Caitlin's question. She has a really fun Goby question.
Ooh, okay, all right. So our giveaway tonight, everybody, is one person is going to win all this stuff. Yeah. It's dangerous for you to be here in the frozen food section.
Why?
Because you could melt all this stuff. What's your name?
Sheldine.
Hi, I'm Todd. Todd Wilkinson. Okay, so anyway, I want to know who. That should be the giveaway winner. Whoever knows what movie that is.
Oh my gosh, right?
That's a
what
joke.
Random person?
Yeah, it's not going to actually be the thing, but you definitely get some Junior G-Man points if you know.
Steve Mr.
Martin.
Skip.
Okay,
no,
Skip.
Steve.
Well, but he didn't say the movie.
Gravedigger.
Gravedigger got it. Nice job. Nice job.
Yeah, you get to see Gravedigger on Sunday. I don't.
Very cool. Okay, so here, giveaway. What we're doing here, we absolutely love, as most of you know, we feed North Fin Foods. We got a bunch of this stuff. It's not just these, but we feed North Fin Foods to all of our fish all the time. It's the only thing we feed because we think it is the highest quality food on the market today. And if you want to, again, I keep saying this, but if you want a really cool podcast, check out the Tank Talk podcast, because we did an interview with the owner of North Fin Foods, and he makes this stuff. He's the one that makes it. I mean, he's got a lot of people that work for him, but he's the one that uses the machines and actually does it. Okay, so thing number one, we have, let me see here, we've got some nano bits. These are small pellets for tiny fish. This is a 0.5 millimeter, so this is going to be a very small thing. great for things like endlers and guppies and even-
Chilies,
Yeah,
little
you-
rasboras.
So, and you're feeding this right now, right, to your little guys?
I do, and my 22 tank too. I like it because you can actually crumble them up a little bit too, and they float longer than like the
I was going to
other
ask
pellets.
you, so because I don't feed this down here, you feed it upstairs, but yeah, it floats a little bit longer than some of the other
does.
stuff because it doesn't get soaked in as much. So you're going to get this, but then you're also going to get a package of cichlid pellets. Now this is the 2 mil, so this is really great for your. This is going to sink a little bit faster, so obviously it's great for cichlids. I feed it to things like our Nanocara and Nanochromis, so the smaller dwarf cichlids, but I will also feed it to African cichlids. So for instance, the Mbuna that are over here, the Geophagus that are in the back. Oop. Oh my gosh, that was
jumped.
a mess.
Did you see that?
Yeah, so they all get this stuff as well. Plecos, I like to feed it to shrimp. So this is a 2 mil, but don't worry, they're not all that size. You are also going to get another 2 mil, and that's the krill. So this is a nice high protein. It's also going to have some of those beta carotenes, bring out some of those colors a little bit more. Again, another nice sinking one. So if you've got a type of fish that maybe likes a little bit more protein in their diet, and these are really, really, really clean foods. I cannot possibly read the ingredients right now because even with glasses on, I don't think I'd be able to do it. But trust me, when you look at the ingredients list, you're going to see actual real nutrients here, not just a bunch of fillers or corn and all that kind of stuff. It's actual real fish food. So that you're going to get as well. And then the last thing is I've got some community, because I want to do some community pellets. This is a 1/2 mil, so again, this is smaller. And again, this is going to, everything eats this. Everything in our fish room eats all of these things. So they're just they're formulated slightly differently so that the protein content is a little bit different for each one. But these are all really, really, really good foods. No fillers, no artificial colors. And they just allow for the fish to fully utilize the nutrients that are there. Okay, so now that we have all that out of the way, can I see that? What we're going to do is it's usually beneficial to be on all messages, and that's what we're going to do here. And so we got to get all of our screens. Let me get all the screens. All messages are live chat, depending on what your screen says.
However, you probably will not see what we see. Correct?
Wait a minute. Did I hit the go button already? I didn't mean to. Did
No.
I? No.
No, you would have had to actually type.
Yeah, I did, though.
You did?
No, I didn't hit it. Okay.
No.
All right. So hold on. Don't type anything yet. It doesn't count until I say go, which I haven't said yet. So, but now we need a number between. You ready? You all ready? You have your number you should have your number pre-typed in. That's a pro tip. Okay.
How
but you
can
don't even know.
No, you don't know the range.
All right. Here we go. Ready? It is a number between. Wait. What is it? 20 and 30. Go. All right, first person who gets the right number between 20 and 30. Between 20 and 30. Holy cow. Yeah, we're done. Hold on a second here. Yeah, I thought I saw it zip by real fast. Everybody was all like, soup. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We're done. You can stop typing. Now, you can keep typing, but it's not going to do you any good anymore. Okay, so we, as always, we've got our many, many screens that we like to kind of match up over here because that's just how we roll to try to, because if all of our screens match, that's who gets the winnings. Wow, this
all right, I've checked it.
Really went fast.
I've checked mine 3 times. What do you got?
Hold on.
Do you know yet?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So
what do you got?
Let me scroll down here. I have this person.
Yep.
Okay, so based on our 5 screens, reveal the number. That's you, the moneyless maven,
Shirley.
otherwise known as Shirley.
Yay.
You have won. And so what you need to do is please send us an email to primetimegiveaway,
singular,
all one word, primetimegiveaway @yahoo.com. Give us your name, your mailing address, and we will send this out sometime in the next week. Congratulations. And don't you worry, like I always say, if you're like, oh, shucks, man, I didn't win. Today was a bad day. Don't worry. We do
I never
these
win
things
anything.
pretty much almost every single week. Almost every week. Because we have lots of partners and sponsors that, again, that's one of the things. If we're going to partner with somebody, if they're going to sponsor the channel, one of my first questions is, what can you do for our viewers? that's how we like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
very, very nice. And
Is Yahoo still a thing? Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's a
old people like
thing.
us, apparently.
man, once you get into
Once you have your web or your
stuff,
email,
yeah, you got to do it.
yeah.
And guess what?
What?
Northfin is here. And Northfin just, not only did we give away Northfin stuff, and do they give us stuff to give to you?
What? It's the
Now
Northfin
they
Day.
went through and gifted 5 new
Yippee!
Prime Timers Prime Time memberships. Thank you very much for doing that.
That's so
Really
fun.
appreciate that. It's like a double whammy.
It is a double whammy.
Thank you for double whammying that whole giveaway situation. That's awesome. Yeah, very, very good people. Very good family.
Yes.
That's important to us too. We don't partner with people who are just abrasive or objectionable. It's just
Nope.
not what we're gonna do. I don't care if
They're-
they gave us here's a whole bunch of stuff and money, but we're jerks. Nah,
But
no
we're
thanks. Yeah,
You're out.
wouldn't that be something? Yeah. Here we're going to give you all of this merch, but we're jerks. Well, then you can keep your merch. Yeah,
We don't like you.
that's right.
All
It is a requirement.
right. What was the question?
Great.
Gobies.
Hold on. Skinny, that's a great question. If you didn't win, how can you get the food? Go to Flip Aquatics, which is another channel sponsor of ours, flipaquatics.com, and they have all the stuff. So Flip, F-L-I-P, flipaquatics.com. Man, it's good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Fishies love it.
And you will notice things like, wow, my fish are looking a little better. They're eating better. Not as much waste because they're not processing as much fillers and garbage that they can't digest. It's
They're happier. They smile more. I'm telling you.
and
My
their
fish
teeth
smile.
look better. Yeah, makes their teeth look nicer. No bags
They're
under
friendly.
their eyes.
They're not hangry.
Yeah, their back problems go away.
Oh, Adam and Donna Rich said Darius was the best Tank Talk guest so far.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that as well. You know, I actually watched that like right away.
yeah, because it was fun. It was a fun conversation.
Mm.
How often do you get to talk to somebody who has like their own like fish food? That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, yeah. Oh, the Goby question. I forget who asked it.
Yes.
It was a Goby question. What's the what Gobies would you recommend for a community tank? I
Great
believe that was the
question.
question.
You got a ton of options. Oh, I
Lipstick
mean a
Goby.
mess load. Yeah, lipstick. So
They're
all
so
the
cute.
pretty much all of the Rhinogobius. It's a genus. So
They're grumpy.
just Rhinogobius. There's a bunch. I did a species profile on the Henechuensis. There's a mess load of them. In fact, right now, and what's the other one that we've got? We've got the yellow stripe goby in our fish room right now that we're bringing to the swaps this weekend. That one would be a really good option. For the life of me, I can't remember what's in the 75 gallon. But those fish are crazy. They're almost like
They're
algae eaters.
so cute.
They're what was it? A hyphen goby? Is that what they're called?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That might be it.
I
They're
don't remember
really
the-
cute.
I don't have the
Really
genus
cute.
and species. Stiphodons, all of those are really good. They stay on the smaller side. If you've got a larger aquarium with larger fish, I have 2 purple spot gobies in that back tank, but that is not, and I repeat, not a fish that I would keep with any other fish that is less than at least 2.5 inches because
Yeah.
they'll
Bye-bye.
hunt them down. I mean, the smallest fish I have in that tank are snakeskin barbs, and that is as small as I would go. And the Rhinogobius themselves don't get huge. They only max out. I'm sorry, the purple spot gobies don't get huge. They max out right around 6 inches or so, and the colors are insane, absolutely insane. So those are all. You've got a lot of options. Gobies are fantastic fish. You do have to be a little bit careful. So some of the gobies would really do better in brackish water. So I'm thinking like the night goby, which is a really pretty fish, but technically that's more of a brackish water fish, even though I kept one in pure fresh water and I had that thing for like 5 years. But yeah, just do a little bit of research. So if you go on and be like, hey, freshwater gobies, just make sure they truly are freshwater. That's why I say the Rhinogobius, the Stiphodon, those are really good options. Purple spots are really good. Rainbow goby absolutely is a nice one as well. It's a bigger one, but sure. And then if you're looking for something that's kind of goby-like but not goby, then look at the gudgeons. So the peacock gudgeons, empire gudgeons. We've got a group of empire gudgeons in the 50-gallon lowboy. I've probably got 50 peacock gudgeons in that quarantine tank over there that's going out to swaps this weekend. Those are really, really great fish too.
All right, Ahawk65 says Flip sent 22 dead fish. He got 22 dead fish in Texas. Oh, so you're chilly too. He says, I get it, it's chilly, but they still haven't responded.
They sent out an email. They sent out a notification like, hey, we got to pause shipping stuff because there's all kinds of weather issues. That I'm sure they're overrun. If you just got that today, if they have not responded to you in the next, let's say by the end of tomorrow, send me an email. But they might just be trying to deal with
probably, yeah,
if there were
they're
issues
holding
that
back
all of a sudden
shipments
some
or
weather came that they weren't expecting. Yeah,
because a whole bunch of areas are getting
But
like cold and
they
snow
will,
and
if you've got the pictures of the fish in the bag and they showed up, they take care of people. They do. Great question. Chris Smith says, are there any gobies compatible with pea puffers?
Chris.
Yeah, I would say pretty much all the small ones. Siphodons, the rhinogobius, I think would be just fine. Lipstick gobies.
Chris,
they're
look
not
up
big.
the lipstick gobies.
Yeah,
they're so
these
cute.
gobies, yellow striped gobies that we have currently in our fish room would be a really good match as well, because they don't get very large, and the pea puffers aren't most likely going to mess with the gobies. So I don't think I would hesitate to put those together.
What would you feed?
Michelle's got a lot of gobies. She's got a lot of our gobies.
That's right. Yeah, she does. She's got a lot of our fish. Michelle,
now, do you remember, because I've had so many gobies in the past, do you have a list of the gobies that you have? Like, do you remember what they're all called?
I bet she does. Yeah, between her and John. What was I just... Hold
on. You think I'm going to answer this. Dave says, why do I never see any videos from hobbyists about silver dollars? Great question. I actually have a group in the bottom 125 and the other side of the fish room, and I've thought about doing a species profile on those fish, and full disclosure, they look absolutely horrible. And so I don't want to do a species. They're huge. They're full grown. They're easily, just the bodies are the size of my hand. They're big fish, but they will sometimes beat the snot out of one another. And so you wind up with these fish that quite frankly are ugly. The bodies are fine, but I'm telling you, I've got 5 or 6 of them now in that tank. I had more, and like their tail fins are sometimes they're a little torn up and they healed, and I don't know what they do to one another. I don't know why they do that. But so the only reason why I haven't done a species profile on them is because I don't want to put fish out there that just don't look all that wonderful. So
no.
They are good fish. So all right, back up. One, they get big. So I would want at least a 75 gallon, but I really do think a 6-foot tank is, when they're full grown, ideal for them, because they are skittish, which is a problem. Best kept in lower light, kind of like piranha. I mean, piranha you don't want to keep in bright light either, but just because they just get really whacked out. You get near a tank, sometimes they get really, really jumpy. If you have any fish in that tank that are going to be bullies, good luck, because now your silver dollars are going to hide a lot. They need to be kept in groups. And so now you're looking at, okay, I need a half a dozen of these fish that are going to grow to the palm of your hand, that are really, really active, very skittish, don't like a lot of light, and, oh, by the way, are going to eat just about every green plant that you throw in the tank. And they eat snails, which is kind of cool too. You wind up with a fish, you're like, why am I keeping this thing? So I actually like them. I like them a lot, and I like the red hook silver dollars. Oh my gosh. And the black bar silver dollars. Those fish are awesome, but they're also really expensive compared to the standards. Ma'am, did you think about what you wanted to say?
Yes. What would you recommend feeding rope fish? Like what? Like of the
That's
North
a whip. That's a whip question. I've never kept rope fish or John, KG Tropicals John. I don't know. Probably full-grown rope fish. I'm assuming would eat the food sticks.
You would think the food sticks,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, the food sticks are floating. They're about that big. I think that would be a good option. And then they do have carnivore pellets, but I think those are pretty big. So I think your rope fish would have to be pretty large by that point. So yeah, those would be good. The krill, and keep in mind that I'm showing you these packages at a certain size, but that doesn't mean, like, for the community, not all the community comes in a 1/2 mil. In fact, when we bring this stuff to the swaps, I think the community that I bring is a 1 mil, and then I sell the cichlid with the 2 mil at the swaps. So they have different pellet sizes for these foods. It's not just that all communities a 1/2 mil and then all krill's a 2. So That's why if you go on the Northfin USA website, and you can see the different sizes, and then you can head over to Flip Aquatics, and then hopefully they have what you want. Okay, let's see here. I saw something. Oh, Sky. Anything to be wary of if you haven't kept gobies before? Maybe just feeding them. So I know that when I bring them in, at least at first, they're like, "What's this food?" I don't know what they're feeding them when I bring them in, like, before I bring them in. But it usually takes them a few days, and I could see where people might freak out. But once you've seen gobies do that, you're like, well, you're either going to eat this or you're going to starve. So that's your choice. And the gobies are like, fine, I'll eat it. And then they just go crazy. Is there anything really in particular? They are not super active. You definitely have to stay away from fish that are going to be fin nippers, or I would never keep gobies with a red-tailed shark or rainbow sharks or anything like that, just because I think they would just get terrorized. They definitely like places to hide. So in the barb tank, oh my gosh, they love it there because they've got all those rocks, all the wood. But a goby is not necessarily a shy fish forever. That's one thing to keep in mind too, is they will seem shy at first, but once they get used to their surroundings and once they know that they're safe, they're actually pretty personable. We have, oh my gosh, it was just on the tip of my, I think they are the high fin goby. They're blue, the males are blue with a really high, tall fin. They're absolutely gorgeous, but they also, some gobies will burrow, and so that's the other thing too. If you are like, hey, I got 6 gobies, they definitely are a fish that would do best in sand. And I told the story a few months ago how I purposely put some of the gobies that I had on gravel so that they wouldn't burrow when we're trying to catch them out for swaps. Found out the hard way, they will figure out how to burrow in gravel. It's far from ideal, so they really, for swaps for us, next time I bring them in, I'm keeping them in bare bottom tanks. These ones that we have now, the yellow stripes, don't burrow though, the way the other ones do. Bigger gobies, they can eat fish. Like the purple spots that I have, I had the, I don't remember the species. I had the big guy in here. They called it, the generic name was a rainbow, but there's 2 different rainbow gobies out there. And the one that I had in this tank was going to be 12 inches. And then he jumped out of the tank like a jerk weasel, and he is no more. Yeah. But some of them just pay attention to size, and then just, again, pay attention to make sure that they're not brackish water.
Jen's Thames asks, what tank mates would go well with a giant betta in a 29-gallon? Off the top of my head, my first thought would be black neons.
Sure. And keep in mind, anytime you're going to keep fish with a betta, make sure the fish are well fed, just because that's going to cut down tremendously on the likelihood that they're going to be fin nipping of any kind. I do love cory cats. In a 29-gallon with a giant betta. I don't know if I would do any kind of gouramis. For some reason, the two just don't often get along all that well. And giant bettas are pretty big, and they can be assertive. For the most part, your ember tetras, all your neon types would probably
glow light
be okay.
Tetras would be cool.
Yeah, you're stuck on the glow lights lately, huh?
Well, yeah, with a betta.
Yeah,
I think the
really rummy
nose
rasbora, rummy nose tetras would work out just fine. Nothing super fast that's going to take all the food away. So maybe I wouldn't do things like guppies and endlers, just because there's a chance that maybe the giant betta won't get enough food. The guppies and endlers will eat it all too fast. Where those other fish, yeah, they eat kind of fast, but not super fast.
Yeah, even like the lamp-eye rasbora. Maybe.
Great point, Mrs. Nesbitt. Yeah, male gobies sometimes, again, it depends on the type of goby. They can be a little tough on one another if there's not line of sight breaks, but you'd be surprised. Like a lot of the Rhinogobia species that we've had, oh my gosh, they literally form piles of gobies, the males and the females.
Grumpy gobies.
Oh my gosh, remember I would clean the 10-gallon up there, the top right 10-gallon, and I had a group of probably 8 or 9 of the Rhinogobius hennechuensis in that tank. And I would do the gravel vacuuming, and they got so comfortable, like they wouldn't even move. I had to kind of move them with the ground. Get out of the way, guys. And then they just form a big pile of gobies. So, and they always got along really well with one another. Once in a while, and it's actually kind of cool, you'd have 2 males that were like, hey, I want to sit on top of this rock. And they would just kind of turn, and they would open their mouth, kind of flare their gills a little bit, and like do this little dance, and then one of them would just go away. But never any kind of real aggression.
All right, so Michelle answered. She said she did email you about the running Gobius that she wants.
Okay.
And then she's, let's see, she did order 2 of the ones you have now. She
Cool.
also has Empires, Blue Neon, Rainbow, Yellow Stripe, Lipstick, and many more. So
Yeah,
you've got the
gotta-
lipstick
yeah.
Gobies. We don't
Michelle's addicted to
anymore.
the Gobies, as you should be. 'cause
As
I
you
am
should be.
too.
They're
That's why I get
so
'em.
funny
Yeah.
and cute. So cute.
Leslie says, is there a way to know how many gallons of water is lost with large rocks and driftwood? Yes. Yes, there is. Unfortunately, you would have to have some type of tote that is marked, that actually has volume markings. Right? So maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to take a gallon jug and I'm going to pour it in there. So I know, okay, up to this line is 10 gallons and this line is...
Oh, yeah, you could cut
Yeah.
open a gallon jug of like water or milk.
Yeah, but if you got a lot of big rocks, you'd
Well,
have to
you-
figure out the display. So basically what you're doing is you're figuring out the displacement.
Yeah, well, you load them up individually. So you got a big pile of rocks, you load up, and you're like, okay, here's 1 gallon, here's 2 gallons, whatever.
Well,
Take
no,
'em
what I'm
out,
saying
come
is you would actually put water in a tote with a known volume, right? And then you would put the rocks in and then see
I
how
see.
much it
Like
goes
make a
up,
line
and
on
then
the
you
tote?
would know. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you'd put a line on probably a clear plastic tote.
I
Say,
like
okay,
mine way
here's my
better.
5, and just mark it every 5 gallons.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then you put the rocks in, you see how much the water level goes up, and that's the water displacement that you're losing. So
There's
that
2
would be
options.
that would be my way to do it.
2 options for
Scott
you.
says, tank mates for threadfin rainbow fish. Go.
What size tank?
Great
I'm-
question.
Boy, I only have like what, a couple, 2, 3 in my little, what I call my mishmash tank, that I've got a bunch of different rainbows in,
Yeah,
and
you do.
boy, those eyes, so pretty. I like them with other rainbows, so like the frittata or the blue eye reds are really nice with them, because the blue eye reds also
Luminatus, yeah.
they both have blue eyes, so they're kind of like really nice together.
Gertrudes. Did you say Gertrudes?
I didn't say those yet, but
Okay.
sure. So really any of the small rainbows.
But if you want to switch it up,
Yeah, I know. If I want to switch it up.
what about like pretty much all the raspberries, right?
Sure.
Chilies, miras, dwarfs, rummy nose,
Uh-huh.
galaxies, emeralds, green kubutai, which
Mm-hmm.
all of the ember tetras would work just fine. So all your small tetras, any of your neon types would work well.
They
Cory
look really
cats.
pretty with chilies,
Yeah.
because like kind of opposite colors.
Yep. Yeah, I think all of those, because the thread fins, they have
Yeah.
little bitty tiny mouths. They're mostly, I would say, shrimp safe just because their mouths are so small. Certainly snail safe, right? Odos, pygmy cories.
You can see them in the, if you want to see a scape that has them and the blue eye, it's blue eye reds that are, no, frittata. Frittata were in
so
there?
I did a species profile using that tank. So I did
The
a species
tank.
profile of the thread fins using your tank.
So the Aquashella
It was
Daytona
23.
23,
Yeah.
if you look up that video, prime time.
Not prime time.
Yeah.
That would be yours. Mine was.
No, I know
the
it's my
species
tank, but
profile.
it was your video. I think it's your video.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
So
She's right.
primetime
Joanna
Aquashella
is
Daytona
right.
23, and you'll see a tank that has them in, and you can see how beautiful they look together.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Ooh, Dave, good question. Are Undergravel filters considered obsolete? I'm going to tell you, I don't know why it keeps coming up, but with the Tank Talk podcast, we did an entire podcast on the Undergravel filter. And still to this day, we get more comments, I think, on that podcast than almost all the other ones that we've done. We made some people mad
bet.
because all we did was say, hey, Undergravel filters used to be a thing. Here's why they're not anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's clear that they're not, right? So we can all
fighting
agree
words.
they're not a thing anymore. Here's why we think that is. And people thought, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. These Undergravel filters are the best things in the world. I'm like, we're not
They like 'em.
that
They're the worst.
They're the worst, although I guess we kind of sort of did in explaining why they're not a thing anymore. But no, they're not obsolete. And there are people who absolutely swear by them and love them. It's an air-driven... So hold on, let me back up a second. For me, the only way an Undergravel filter makes sense is if it's air-driven. Because the minute, I know a lot of people in those comment sections, put a power head on it. It takes care of pretty much all your problems. Yeah, if I'm going to put a power head on an Undergravel filter, just like if I was going to do that on a sponge filter, then why would I use that? I would just use a hang-on-back filter or a canister filter at that point and get all those benefits and not have to worry about the subpar filtration. So once you're plugging something in to a sponge filter or an Undergravel filter, something that's meant to be air-driven, to me it loses most of the benefit in that it's supposed to be economical. That aside, Undergravel filters have some serious drawbacks, and that is you can't use sand because it clogs up the holes and it would sink into the actual Undergravel part underneath the filter, which would prevent the water flow, which defeats the whole purpose. Planted tanks can be an issue because if you've got crypts and sword plants with these extensive root systems, they grow into the holes, which makes, again, the water passing through the substrate and doing the down through the substrate under the Undergravel filter and back up again much less likely. If you've got fish that dig, if you don't put egg crate down first, then they're going to dig, and this minute they expose the Undergravel filter, it now becomes worthless because water and air are going to take the path of least resistance, no longer going through the substrate where all your beneficial bacteria are supposed to be. And then also you have detritus that builds up under the Undergravel filter, which becomes, in my opinion, a nitrate making factory. So that's some of the reasons why they're no longer used. However, if you're someone out there who loves them, use them, especially if they're working for you. I'm not saying tear up your tank and take them out. I'm just saying I would never put one in my tank again.
Alrighty. From Shirley, the Moneyless Maven. Is it, let's see. Okay. How big of a tank would be good for 4 electric blue cars and 2 geos, the Steindachnerai? Or would I need to split them between a 55 and a 75?
You would not need to split them. Steindachnerai they're not very big. So, I shouldn't say they're not very big. They're certainly not as big as some of the geos will get. They're interesting. I did a species profile on them a long time ago. This is probably one of the smallest fish I've ever bred in terms of, like, they were juveniles. They were probably not even 2 inches, and all of a sudden I had females holding. I'm like, what in the heck? These things are babies themselves, like babies having babies. So I'm surprised that, like, the female's not holding fish that are having babies and holding fish while she's holding the fish. So cool fish, interesting shape. I think they would get along just fine. I think you could you do both in a 75? Maybe. If you've got both tanks, certainly it's not a bad idea to have a backup plan. So if you wanted to do a couple of Steindachnerai and the 4 electric blue car and a 75, it's something I would certainly try. Get them small, let them grow up together, give them some line of sight breaks. Obviously, you definitely want to be on sand with the geos. But, and if it doesn't work, then you've got the 55 gallon. You can move one of them into the 55. So it's doable, I think.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, what did Whip say about? All right. So he says, because Whip has big fish. So Whip says, I use Northfin a lot. I use the Nanobites, kelp wafers, Bug Pro sticks, carnivore jumbo fish, tropical sticks, arowana, Supermix, and cichlid foods, plus the flake. And they love it. So yeah, probably like the sticks.
Yeah, the tropical sticks are big. Yeah. This is funny.
Cool.
M&C. I've been running Undergravel filters for 20 plus years. Most stable tanks I've had with loads of plants. Nice.
Yeah.
Then absolutely. See?
Mm-hmm. And Flip loves them. Oh no, he uses
he uses the Matten filters.
Matten filters. Yeah. I always get those confused.
Since when is he loving those?
I get those confused. They seem the same as to me.
Wait, you get an Undergravel filter and a Matten filter?
Because when I picture them in my head, they both seem like flat. One's under the gravel,
one's on
the side.
Yeah, and it's funny because Flip loves the Matten filter.
Yeah.
Because he's mostly
shrimp
with the shrimp. And then I'm thinking, man, for the Matten filter for me, in these quarantine tanks, when I've got 200 fish in a tank, if they're producing any kind of waste, then I got to pull that bad boy out. And like, it's, basically like cleaning a gigantic sponge filter. But
yuck.
If you've got substrate in your tank, now that's starting to, because you can't have that there underneath the Matten filter. Otherwise it doesn't work anymore because it sticks up too far. It would just be a nightmare for me to use Matten filters. So again, all these filters that we talk about in the right setup, they can be great. M&C is loving the Undergravel filters. Flip loves his Matten filters. I'm use a ton of sponge filters, but I actually don't really like them. They're just a necessity thing. I got canisters back here for a certain reason. I got hang-on backs. I've got internal canister filters. We talked about that today in the prime timer video about how I might be moving to more of those instead of hang-on backs for a couple of the tanks. It just depends on your setup. And if it's working, keep it. If you see videos where someone's like, this is the new best filter ever and you absolutely need it, or you're a loser as a fish keeper and your fish are all suffering, and you're like, wow, that's weird. I've been doing this in my tank for, I don't care if it's been 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years. If it's working, why change it? Every single filter does the same thing. It moves water to hopefully across some type of a structure that houses beneficial bacteria for the nitrification process, and also mechanical filtration so that it traps stuff that's in the water so your water appears clear. All filters do this. Some do certain aspects better than others, but if it's working, no need to change.
All right, Dory Bailey, this would also be a question, I think, for Oink. Oink loves blood parrots. Would a blood parrot work with Acaras? I think the colors would go great.
What size tank?
I don't know. Dory, what size tank?
Yeah, I do think they could work together. So as long as you got at least a 75 gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would actually be very interesting. You're right. The blood parrots have a really nice, beautiful orange.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the electric blue Acara with a nice blue, and the blood parrots. But the interesting thing about the blood parrots, what always happens when we've kept them is
125, she says.
Oh, yeah, you're good. You're in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
With the blood parrots, what tends to happen early on when they're young, they're very rambunctious and almost
They're like puppies.
They're almost comically aggressive. They will chase other fish around, but they can't do anything to them because the unfortunate thing with the blood parrots is because of the way they're bred, they really can't move their mouths. Now, they have hind jaws, so they can still eat and everything, but their mouth doesn't really move, so they can't bite fish or really inflict any harm. Now, that's okay if the fish that they're kind of chasing around eventually like, okay, the blood parrot's gotten older, it's not chasing me around anymore, I don't need any retribution. If you've got other aggressive cichlids in there, like, oh, I've got some Jack Dempseys or I've got some African cichlids, and that blood parrot was chasing them around, and then those cichlids are like, hey, you know what? I've decided this is my tank, and now I'm going to attack the blood parrot, and they realize the blood parrot can't really do anything to them. That's when you wind up with this big orange softball sitting and sulking on the side of your aquarium. I'm getting picked on, and I can't do anything, and I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to eat.
Poor kid.
Yeah. So, but that might be a nice mix.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Leslie, for sure. The blood parrots will chase fish around relentlessly sometimes. It's just they don't actually do much besides terrorize them by...
They probably look scary.
Okay,
they probably look
let's
scary.
Let's face it. If there was a 500-pound gigantic round Martian chasing you up and down the street, bright orange,
yeah,
chasing you up and down the street,
I'd run too.
That would create a lot of stress. And then, like, all of a sudden, one day they catch you,
and they'd be like,
and they just kind of bump into you, and you're like, wait a minute, this giant orange 500-pound blob can only bump into me? It's game on, man. Put up your dukes. So they don't have any dukes. All right, it's game on. Yeah. These things are dukeless. Yeah. We got time for a few more, don't we? Yeah. Ooh, CJ says, how much should I be feeding my German blue ram cichlids? 2 to 4 month old. There's 2 of them. I generally have the same opinion for most fish. I will throw as much food in a tank as they can eat within about a minute or so. And if they gobble that down and still look like they're absolutely starving, I'll put a tiny bit more. And eventually you kind of get an idea of, okay, here's the volume of food that I can feed them that they will fully consume without a bunch of stuff falling to the bottom and then not getting eaten and rotting. So that's generally what I do. It's just a little bit of trial and error.
Delco Aquatics says, my blood parrot I've had for 4 years can and does bite. Anytime my arm goes in, she chases me down and has even drawn blood.
What?
Really?
Your blood parrot's weird.
Your blood parrot's
blood
angry.
Parrot's a vampire.
You need to sit that blood parrot down.
Yeah, but like, what happened to you? How can you tell that they're still hungry? Because they're still going to be looking at you. Still, they get used. They know when the magic food fairy comes, and that's all of us, and we drop food in the tank, and if they're still looking at you like, yeah, come on, give me more, you put a little bit more in, they're still eating it, they're still hungry.
It's like a couple minutes, right? They should be eating no more than a couple minutes.
Within a minute or so. That was one of the things we talked about with Darius from Northfin about how food will lose its nutrients. So all these foods are nutrient infused, flakes and pellets, when they go into a tank, if they're not getting consumed right away and they just sit at the bottom. So not only is the food not being eaten right away, but then it's actually some of the nutrients that are in that food are dissolving into the water column. And so even if it does get eaten later, it doesn't necessarily have all the nutrient content that it did when it first got into the tank. Second floor, thank you very much for gifting 5 prime timers. Really appreciate it. Thanks for doing that.
Second floor.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
So sweet.
Bio says, yes, you can have beta female sororities. It can work. I usually recommend, I did a whole video about it. I was talking with prison betas. They do a fair number of beta sororities successfully long term, which is different than, sometimes you see people like, all right, put this beta sorority together. Here's my 3 betas in a 20 gallon. And then they never show you the result of that 6 or 8 months later because they've only got 1 beta left. So usually with the beta sororities, you're trying to overstock them like you would do in Buna cichlids, peacock cichlids. The larger the tank, the better. For me personally, I would never even try it in anything less than a 4-foot tank. In fact, I have tried it in a 75, but I didn't have nearly enough, and it never worked because I didn't have enough. Enough meaning like 20, 25, 30 of them in a tank that size.
Yeah.
Then it works a little better. All right, let's see here. What's going to be our grand finale question? Who's got a good grand finale question?
Well, that sounds fun.
The grand finale question. That would be like a special thing. You're going to get a gold medal. Let me look through and see if I can find the grand finale question. Do you have one?
No, I'm looking. It's going to have to be good, though, now that you've done that.
Now that I kind of bumped it up. We have to look for a good one. She just says, how do I sign up for the giveaway? No sign up. So basically, as soon as we say go and there is a number, we give you a range. You put the number in. If it's the right number, guess what? You get the thing. That's how we roll. There you go. Grand finale question right here. Dave, you got it. Is there a such thing as too much filtration? There's a such thing as wasting too much money on filtration, and there's a such thing as having too much flow in an aquarium that can seriously stress out fish. But as far as, I've got too much surface area for beneficial bacteria, no, because the bacteria will only grow to the amount of nutrients available based on the bioload that you have in the tank. I did a video on how much filtration you actually need, and it's surprising. I think what most people don't realize is in all of our quarantine tanks in our fish room, I do not hesitate to put in a couple hundred fish in a 20 gallon or 300, 400, a small fish. I'm not talking about big ones, but I've got 60 peacock gudgeons in a 20 gallon right now. And guess what? 1 Hydro 2 sponge filter. That's all I need. I've got, in a 37 gallon right now, 60 2 saddle cory cats at least. Never an ammonia spike, never any issues. And the reason for that is for a biological filtration, you don't need that much. You just need water that is moving. And in fact, that's why you've got people who do some filterless tanks, tons of plants, lightly stocked, no actual filter, no air stones, works just fine because surface area of all kinds can allow for the nitrification process to happen. Now, when it comes to the mechanical filtration, getting stuff out of the water column, then that's usually where people bump it up a little bit. That's why in all the tanks behind us here, I've got some big canister filters running in the 125s, those Biomaster 850s. The 75s have a Fluval 407, but that's mostly because I want the tanks to appear clear, not because I'm worried about an ammonia or nitrite spike. If I just wanted, so in all these tanks that you see behind me, if all I cared about was not having any water quality issues in terms of no ammonia, no nitrite, every one of these tanks would have 1 Hydro 2 sponge filter, and that is it. And that means in that 75 gallon behind Joanna's head, I've got a half a dozen Geophagus. There's a lot of fish in there, some rainbow fish, 5 clown loaches, 3 of which are very, very large. 1 Hydro 2 is perfectly fine for biological filtration because all the other surface areas in that tank would house beneficial bacteria. So yes, you can spend a lot of extra money on filtration you don't actually need. If your water is looking good and you don't have any ammonia or nitrite, there's no need to add anything else.
There's a few more questions I gotta grab.
Okay, apparently we're having more than one grand finale question.
Dan the Mountain Dew Man says, what is your favorite Mountain Dew flavor? I know yours.
Nothing.
None.
It's disgusting.
He doesn't like any of them.
Tastes like medicine.
You know,
Might as well
some
drink
of
a
the
tab. Or sparkling water for that matter.
He's such a hater. I don't know what my favorite. I think it's just what color I feel like. Which, you know, the color that I'm feeling.
The boys like
the blue.
Mountain Dew, yeah.
Like can be fun. I don't ever do the red one, but I think there might be an orange one that's good. And then Chris Smith asks, I have a mystery. Guess how many trumpet snails I caught in the Sarah snail trap this week?
Oh, you could pack that bad boy hundreds, maybe 1,000.
I was gonna guess 100. What do you say?
Yeah.
I hope it's not 0.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
And then, wait, what else did I want to? Oh, Lynn asks, how many eggs did my hens lay today? I'm gonna guess 20. Lynn Sieber.
Lynn, we're going to have to start trading. I didn't
Right?
realize that you had, we're going to have to start, and I'm not kidding, eggs for fish. Like, so.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh,
'Cause we
Robert
go for like a
Johnston
dozen
wants
a
to
day.
know, what is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
That dude can't, we got to leave that one for next week.
Oh, we'll start
Yeah.
the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was one other one that I wanted to get that was really fun. Oh, Oink, did we have a good Valentine's Day? Yes. We wound up getting a heart-shaped pizza.
Yeah, that
They-
was pretty cool.
We went to a favorite pizza place and they said, do you want it in the shape of a heart? And we're like, sure.
Like,
Why
yeah,
not?
no, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Is that it? All right.
I think we're gonna call it a night. What do you say, everybody? So yeah, let's call it a night. And thank you to everyone for being here, for all the prime timers, gifters, and the new prime timers. Thank you to our moderators, everybody who asked all the awesome questions. Really appreciate you being here as always. And we'll be back same time, same place next Thursday. And by the way, once again, if you haven't caught the KG Tropicals live stream that comes on right before ours, you could make a whole Thursday evening out of it. Thanks for being here. We will see you again next week. Maybe we'll even have another giveaway.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye, everybody.
Night.